Hey everyone, it's Xander here, and we're going to be going over some more psych review concepts. Some people wanted some more pharmacotherapy too as well, and side effects of psych drugs, so we'll be going over that as well. So here's question 41. A 24-year-old man who was brought into the emergency department by his roommate for a sudden onset neck stiffness and difficulty speaking. He started haloperidol 3 days ago for acute psychosis. On exam, his eyes are deviated upwards, his neck is twisted and in a sustained contraction. He appears frightened but alert and oriented. Vitals are stable and there's no signs of fever or leukocytosis. What's the best step in management? A, increase haloperidol dose. B, administer diphenylhydramine or benztropine. C, start propranolol. D, order brain MRI. Or E, discontinue haloperidol and observe. So this is acute dystonia, and it's a common extrapyramidal symptom. And what you're going to want to do is administer diphenylhydramine or benztropine. This can start anywhere between hours to days after starting an antipsychotic. Typically, first generation antipsychotics like haloperidol are the causative agent, and it's treated with anticholinergic agents such as diphenylhydramine or benztropine. Question 42. A 35-year-old man with schizophrenia was started on olanzapine 5 days ago. Since then, he has felt extremely uncomfortable, constantly pacing around the apartment, unable to sit still. He denies anxiety, hallucinations, or suicidal ideation. He describes the sensation as internal restlessness that improves only when moving. Vitals are stable. The exam shows no rigidity or tremor. Which of the following is the most appropriate next step in management? A, increase olanzapine dose. B, start propranolol. C, add diphenylhydramine. D, start sertraline. Or E, discontinue all medications. So here, you're going to want to start propranolol, B. And this is akathisia, which is an EPS characterized by subjective restlessness and objective motor activity due to antipsychotics. It is preferred to lower the dose or switch to a different drug, but first-line pharmacotherapy is a beta blocker, such as propranolol. Question 43. A 68-year-old woman with chronic schizophrenia presents to clinic for routine follow-up. She has been taking haloperidol for many years without any recent dosing changes. Her daughter reports new involuntary facial movements, including lip smacking, tongue protrusion, and grimacing. On exam, she has repetitive chewing motions and choreiform hand movements. Otherwise, she's alert, oriented, and afebrile. What's the most appropriate next step in management? A, increase haloperidol. B, start diphenylhydramine. C, switch to clozapine or valbenzine. D, add benztropine. Or E, reassurance and continue current regimen. So here you're going to want to start clozapine or valbenzine. So this is tardive dyskinesia, which is a late onset extrapyramidal side effect caused by long-term dopamine receptor blockade, such as this person who's been taking haloperidol for many years. The best step in management is to reduce or discontinue the antipsychotic if possible, or switch to an atypical agent like clozapine or valbenzine, which is a VMAT2 inhibitor. Question 44. A 27-year-old man with acute psychosis is hospitalized and started on haloperidol. 3 days later, he becomes confused and unresponsive. He is febrile with a fever of 103.6. He's tachycardic and diaphoretic. Exam reveals muscle rigidity, elevated blood pressure, and delayed reflexes. Labs show leukocytosis and a creatinine kinase level of 12,000. What's the most appropriate next best step in management? A, administer bromocriptine or dantrolene. B, start propranolol. C, begin IV fluids and observe. D, increase haloperidol dose. Or E, administer lorazepam. So here, you're going to want to administer bromocriptine or dantrolene because this is neuroleptic malignant syndrome or NMS, and it's a life-threatening reaction to antipsychotics, and it's characterized by fever, rigidity, and autonomic instability with elevated CK. You typically see like that muscle rigidity. I think some people describe it as lead pipe rigidity too. If you see that in a stem, that's usually a giveaway. And it requires immediate discontinuation of the offending drug and treatments with dopamine agonists such as bromocriptine or muscle relaxants like dantrolene. So question 45. A 32-year-old man with major depressive disorder is prescribed an antidepressant. He returns to the emergency department 5 days later with tremor, hyperreflexia, and tachycardia and clonus. He He reports that he took over-the-counter cold medication containing dextromethorphan. His temperature is 102.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Which of the following medications most likely contributed to this patient's condition? A. Bupropion, B. Phenelzine, C. Mirtazapine, D. Nortriptyline, or E. Trazodone. So the correct answer here would be B. Phenelzine. So this patient is experiencing serotonin syndrome, which is characterized by that tremor, clonus, autonomic instability, that fever, tachycardia, and mental status changes. Phenelzine is an MAO inhibitor, which combining it with another serotonin agent like dextromethorphan can lead to excess serotonin and cause serotonin syndrome. Question 46. A 66-year-old man with depression and weight loss is started on mirtazapine. At follow-up 2 weeks later, he is reported feeling better, he is sleeping well, and has gained 6 pounds. He denies sexual side effects. His only concern is feeling a bit more groggy in the morning. Which of the following best explains this patient's response? A. SSRI activation, B. Antihistamine effect, C. alpha-2 receptor antagonism, D. MAOI-induced sedation, or E. Serotonin reuptake inhibition. So the correct answer here would be the antihistamine effect. Mirtazapine strongly blocks antihistamine H1 receptors, causing that sedation and appetite. You can also see this with olanzapine, but mirtazapine is also known for this. So it's the antihistamine effect of these medications. Question 45. A 34-year-old woman taking phenelzine for treatment-resistant depression attends a dinner party and consumes red wine and aged cheese. 1 hour later, she develops a severe pounding headache, facial flushing, and nausea. In the ED, blood pressure is 210/110, and she appears visibly distressed. There's no fever, clonus, or rigidity. What's the next immediate best step in management? A. Administer naloxone. B. Discontinue all psychiatric medication. C. Administer phentolamine. D. Initiate benzodiazepine therapy. Or E. Administer serotonin antagonism. So the correct answer here would be C. Administer phentolamine. So MAO inhibitors inhibit tyramine breakdown. Tyramine is found in aged foods such as the cheese and wine that she ate. The excess tyramine can cause this catecholamine surge, which leads to hypertensive crisis. Phentolamine is the alpha-1 blocker that reverses this. Question 46. A 45-year-old man is started on venlafaxine for major depressive disorder. After 3 months, his mood is improved, but he reports new onset elevated blood pressure. His readings are consistently around 150 to 90, and he compared his baseline values in the normal range. He has not changed his diet or started any new medications. Which of the following best explains this patient's hypertension? A. Weight gain from therapy. B. Poor adherence to medication. C. Norepinephrine reuptake inhibition. D. Renin angiotensin stimulation. Or E. GABA activity. So venlafaxine is an SNRI, and that N stands for norepinephrine reuptake inhibition. So the correct answer would be C. So venlafaxine, an SNRI, at higher doses inhibits norepinephrine reuptake, leading to dose-dependent hypertension, which is a pretty good known side effect. Question 47. A 74-year-old woman with depression is started on escitalopram. A week later, her daughter reports that the patient has been more confused and lethargic. Labs reveal serum sodium of 122, low serum osmolality, and inappropriately elevated urine sodium. What's the best explanation for her symptoms? A. Central diabetes insipidus. B. Acute kidney injury. C. SSRI-induced SIADH. D. Age-related cognitive decline. Or E. Volume depletion of SSRI. So the best answer here would be C. SSRI-induced syndrome of the inappropriate antidiuretic hormone, or SIADH. And it's not a well-known cause of SSRIs, but I've seen it tested a couple of times, or I've seen it come up a couple of times. So SSRIs can cause SIADH, particularly in elderly patients. This results in the syndrome of SIADH, where you get that inappropriately low serum sodium with inappropriately high urine sodium. Question 48. A 22-year-old woman is brought into the ED after a suspected overdose. She is unconscious, tachycardic, and hypotensive, and has dilated pupils. EKG shows a widened QRS complex A bottle of amitriptyline was found empty next to her. What's the most appropriate next step in management? A, flumenazole, B, IV fluids, C, IV sodium bicarb, D, physostigmine, or E, naloxone. So the correct answer here would be IV sodium bicarbonate, C. So this is a TCA overdose, which causes cardiotoxicity via sodium channel blockade. Sodium bicarb narrows the QRS and improves the hypertension by stabilizing those myocardial membranes. Question 50. A 35-year-old man with generalized anxiety disorder presents with high fever, severe agitation, and whole body tremor. 1 week ago, his psychiatrist increased the dose of sertraline and he began taking an over-the-counter preparation of St. John's wort. In the emergency department, he is diaphoretic, tachycardic, and confused. Neuromuscular exam shows marked hyperreflexia with inducible ankle clonus and intermittent lower extremity rigidity. No antipsychotic medications are on his profile. What best explains his patient's symptoms? So this would be serotonin syndrome. And this here, the pearl to take away is St. John's wort has serotonergic activity. We've kind of already went over serotonin syndrome, so I won't touch on that too much, but just know that people can be taking over-the-counter stuff that can cause this as well on top of their SSRI, so they should be educated on what not to take. Question 51. A 47-year-old man with chronic insomnia and depressive symptoms are prescribed low-dose trazodone at bedtime. After 1 week, he arrives at the emergency department with painful, persistent penile erection that lasted a little over 4 hours, despite attempts at ice packs and ambulation. He denies trauma, recreational drug use, or use of PD-5 inhibitors. Physical exam confirms an engorged, tender corpora cavernosa without signs of infection. Which of the following is the most likely cause of this patient's condition? A, benzodiazepine withdrawal. B, SSRI-induced sexual dysfunction. C, trazodone-induced priapism. D, hyperprolactinemia. Or E, anticholinergic effects. So trazodone is also known as trazobone because it gives you this priapism, and it's a serotonin modulator that's used off-label for insomnia. Priapism is a serious side effect, and so anytime you're seeing priapism in a psych shelf or psych test, just think of trazodone. So a 26-year-old woman with major depressive disorder is prescribed Bupropion to help improve her energy. She has a history of bulimia nervosa and reports losing 15 pounds in the past 2 months. 1 week into treatment, she experiences a generalized tonic-clonic seizure while at work and is brought to the emergency department. Her vital signs and basic labs are normal. There's no signs of abuse. Which of the following is the most likely explanation? A, poor medication adherence. B, drug interaction with OCP. C, withdrawal from SSRIs. D, contraindicated in eating disorders. Or E, anxiety-induced pseudo-seizure. So one thing about bupropion is it lowers the seizure threshold, and people with bulimia are at risk for that. So bupropion is contraindicated in patients with bulimia, anorexia, due to this electrolyte shifts or seizure risks. Question 54. A 34-year-old man with bipolar 1 is stable on lithium therapy. His primary care provider recently started him on hydrochlorothiazide for a newly diagnosed hypertension. 2 days later, he develops confusion, coarse tremor, nausea, and vomiting. His lithium level is found to be 2.3. What's the most likely cause of his symptoms? A, new onset renal failure. B, poor med adherence. C, drug interactions increasing lithium levels. D, hyponatremia from thiazide. Or E, anticholinergic toxicity. So I'll give you a hint that lithium level's high. This is going to be a drug interaction increasing lithium levels. So thiazide diuretics decrease lithium clearance and can lead to lithium toxicity. Classic findings in lithium toxicity is tremor, nausea, ataxia, and confusion. So question 59, a 29-year-old man with treatment-resistant depression is switched from fluoxetine to phenelzine. He stops fluoxetine and begins phenelzine 5 days later. 2 days after starting phenelzine, he develops agitation, confusion, and hyperreflexia and clonus. His temperature is 39.1 degrees Celsius, which is high. And what's the most likely cause? A, anticholinergic toxicity. B, serotonin syndrome. C, MAOI, hypertensive crisis. D, NMS. Or E, acute withdrawal with reaction. So this is B, serotonin syndrome. So fluoxetine has a long half-life. greater than 5 days, and you actually need to wait a 5-week washout before starting an MAOI. Otherwise, you get that serotonin overload from those from having too much serotonin from two serotonin modulating medications in your body. So question 60. A 76-year-old man with poorly controlled diabetic neuropathy is prescribed nortriptyline at follow-up. He complains of blurry vision, dry mouth, constipation, and difficulty urinating. He denies any changes in mood or appetite. Vital signs and labs are unremarkable. Which is the mechanism behind his symptoms? A, dopamine blockade. B, alpha-1 receptor antagonism. C, anticholinergic effects. D, antihistamine H1 antagonism. Or E, serotonin reuptake inhibition. So the correct answer here would be C, anticholinergic effects. So TCAs, especially nortriptyline and amitriptyline, has strong anticholinergic side effects, which are risky to the elderly. So you want to be cautious on using them in the elderly. Classic symptoms of anticholinergic side effects is dry mouth, blurry vision, constipation, retention. Basically, you are dry everywhere, is how I remember. All right, 26-year-old woman with bipolar 1 presents for prenatal care after a positive pregnancy test. She's currently 6 weeks pregnant and has been stable on lithium for the past year. She asks whether she should continue taking this medication. You review the potential teratogenic risks with her. What's the most appropriate next step? A, continue lithium without changes. B, immediately stop lithium. C, switch to valproate. D, discuss risk of teratogenic and consider dose reduction or switching. Or E, recommend ECT. So you're going to want to discuss the risk of teratogenicity and consider dose reduction or switching. Lithium is associated with Epstein's anomaly, which is a rare heart defect, but you don't always stop it. So you want to do some shared decision making. Some patients would rather stay on it. Some would rather switch to other alternatives like lamotrigine. All right, question 64. A 28-year-old woman presents to her primary care provider complaining of electric shock sensations in her head, dizziness, fatigue, and mood swings that started about 4 days ago. She recently stopped taking paroxetine, which she had been using for generalized anxiety disorder for 6 months. She stopped cold turkey because she was feeling better, denies any substance use or recent illness, vital signs are normal. What is the most likely explanation for her symptoms? So this would also be C, SSRI discontinuation syndrome. I think we talked about this. Actually, I don't think we did. So abruptly stopping an SSRI can lead to dizziness, fatigue, insomnia, and brain zaps, emotional instability. Paroxetine and venlafaxine are usually the causative agents, so that's why you always want to taper SSRIs gradually and not stop cold turkey. So question 65, I think this will be our last one, but a 54-year-old man with bipolar 1 disorder is brought to clinic by his partner who reports that the patient has been excessively thirsty, urinating constantly, even waking up multiple times a night to urinate. He's been on lithium for several years and is otherwise stable. Physical exam is unremarkable and vitals are normal. Basic labs reveal a normal serum sodium and creatinine, but his urine osmolality is low. His high serum osmolality and water deprivation test shows no increase in urine osmolality, and there's minimal response to desmopressin. Which of the following is the most likely cause of this patient's condition? A, central diabetes insipidus due to lithium-induced hypothalamic injury. B, primary polydipsia from psychosis. C, lithium-induced nephrogenic diabetes insipidus. D, hypercalcemia from lithium use. Or E, anticholinergic toxicity. So we have this person constantly waking up to pee. They've been on lithium. They have normal serum sodium and creatinine, but their urine osmolality is low. And he has high serum osmolality, so that's diabetes insipidus. And then you have water deprivation test that shows no increase in urine osmolality, and there's minimal response to desmopressin. So that minimal response to desmopressin is what gives us away. It is lithium-induced nephrogenic diabetes insipidus, because lithium impairs renal response to ADH, leading to nephrogenic diabetes insipidus. You get that dilute urine, polyuria, polydipsia, and low urine osmolality. And then desmopressin having minimal to no effect confirms nephrogenic origin, because if it's central diabetes insipidus, then you give desmopressin and then it causes, and then it has an effect. So yeah, that's it, guys.